Can you guys hear us now? Oh. I think that's a yes. Yay! We are heard. Okay. So I'll start over again. This is Dan Comstock. He is joining me today. Dan is responsible for Goat LARP and the soon-to-be Village of Idiots LARP. Thank you for being here, Dan.
Thank you.
And I'm Amanda. I am the marketing director for Living Fictions, so I am responsible for marketing Coventry, Invictus, and Fealty. So we're gonna take a little bit of time today to talk about what we did, what each of us did separately for our games, what we found that worked, what we found that didn't work for marketing a new game. Dan, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. Let's see. I mean, I can kind of talk about the process. So, Goat LARP was a kind of unique game to market because it's just like one joke with infinite potential. You know, it's a game where you run LARPs for goats, for farm animals. So, uh, I guess what I tried to think about, like, how best can I make the person who runs into like the goat LARP ad like imagine what's this day going to be like, and just get a little bit curious about it. And if they go, that sounds like it would actually be fun, that's half the work. So so all the like marketing was kind of around like generating like this mood. Like the website has a lot of jokes on it, and I had like these ridiculous Frazetta paintings, that I photoshopped and stuff like that. But it was just like this like kind of wacky energy that I wanted people to kind of feel when they tap in, when they visit the site or like look at any of the stuff. Um, and it like really took off. Like the marketing for Goat LARP went like farther than I could have imagined. Like I was on Good Morning Sacramento, and like the Onion AV Club did an article on us. So it was pretty sweet. But that's kind of hard to plan for. You can. um,
You blew
yeah.
up. You went viral.
Right.
That's awesome. So, what did you learn from marketing Goat LARP that you're using for Village of Idiots?
Hmm. I don't know if there was anything specific from Goat LARP, but it's my theory for Village of Idiots is the same idea, like where it's like I want like there's a specific experience that happens in the game, this kind of funny energy that exists, and I want to just constantly be putting out like little write-ups about like here's how the tavern staff will play this weekend, and here's how the trash collector plays this weekend, and have them each be like really funny. And if you read it, like you could imagine yourself like having a good time doing these things in
Mm-hmm.
this like silly environment. You know, yeah. So that's my theory of like pushing it, like just like try to get their imagination and go like, oh, that would be fun.
So, marketing, and I call your games niche games just because
Right.
they're completely unique. I haven't nobody's seen anything like them before. So, building a player base for a niche game from the ground up is really a serious task. It's, hey, I have this idea and it's fun and it's wonky and I want you to have fun with me. That's so unlike my experience, but really, really cool to watch.
Right. The common chord that it has with organizing other LARPs, though, is that like really your product is your community.
Yeah.
Like really it's about like getting a bunch of people that want to get together and play with each other on the weekend. And so, I made it worse. uh, yeah, like anything you can do to feed like people like posting memes about your game and like hanging out and talking about it and getting excited, like that's all good, Um, and yeah, Go LARP was the same way. Like we have like our Facebook group is just people posting like goat memes nonstop, and it's very silly and friendly,
Are you
and that's
still
exactly
getting
the
goat
energy of the
memes?
game. The group doesn't have a lot right now, but I'd say people tag me in 3 or 5 goat. Like they see a goat on the internet, it's going to be on my wall that week.
That's amazing. Awesome.
This is the life I've carved out for myself.
You've reached like triumphant fame, and this is how it manifests: is you just are
Yeah.
constantly flooded with goat memes. Uh, so that's really cool. I spoke a little bit about how I've had a very different experience because when I decided to, or when Jake McCarthy came to me and asked me to be the marketing director of Living Fictions, Coventry was about to air, and it's New England. It's another big high fantasy game. How do you make that different than any other game? Um, and I found that one of the best ways to market, much to like you said, was to expand on the community. So I went and I NPC'd every single game possible in New England. Um, I would look at Daving Penn and Zephyrine Penn's LARP hack calendar, and I'd be like, oh, I've never been to this game before. Let's stop by there this weekend and go help and talk about Coventry, and we'll see. And we ended up building a massive player base off of it. We had been fortunate enough as well that a lot of games in the area had closed, so we could take a lot of uh, people who had lost their homes and to help them find a new one. Um, I think I was having a conversation earlier today, and one of the things that I think is the most important parts about marketing a new game is finding an elevator pitch too. What
Right.
what makes your game unique? Give me a 3-line go-to of what makes your game special. What is your game about?
Right. You got to be able to boil down what you're giving into something that like really cleanly expresses it in a really tight space. I've been seeing a bunch of games post like their design sheets. Have you seen this phenomenon at all? I
Mm-mm.
think this is really cool. So like a design sheet is like it's not marketing. It's just it's not like a rule book usually. Like some games will put their rules in their design sheet, but it's not really necessarily for that. And it's just kind of like the brief pitch about the game. It's like here's like a little blurb that's like maybe like the theme of the plot, and then they talk about like what like who is this game for? What kind of experiences are we delivering? What are the accommodations like? What's the food situation?
Huh.
What's yeah, like what kinds of experiences can you get at this thing? And then what kind of things is this not about? You know, and like basically just trying to like express like a philosophy of what kind of game you're running, and like put that in a place people can kind of access it and get excited about it and understand. Like there's so many different LARP styles out there. Like it's almost like we need to develop like a kind of language about how we what kind of game is this, so that people's expectations are aligned with it.
I've been finding more and more that um, games have been putting in a lot of like their, oh, look, there's a quarry, um, a lot of their fundamental core values in the first couple pages of the rulebook. And I think that that's really, really important as well, is much to like what you said, creating a space where people know, hey, this is the kind of game that I'm walking into, and allowing players to have that is really, really great, because you can weed out, like, if I don't want to play a game that has I don't know, I'll say duct tape weapons, for instance. If
Right.
I had my cornea ripped and had to have surgery, and I'm not a fan of duct tape weapons, and because of that, I would want to know that right off the bat.
Right.
Um, what other interesting things have we seen, like, in the marketing scape? I Something that worked really, really well for me was creating a very, very interactive, uh, putting out interactive content for our players right when we first started dropping the rulebook and things of the rulebook. So we had a lot of polls going on and a lot of things to let our players know that we wanted to hear from them. And I feel like that's gone really, really well.
Yeah, you guys did a lot of engagement and outreach. It felt like this living thing that everybody's participating in.
What have you seen that's worked really, really, or worked really well for Goat Lopper, or is working for a Village of Idiots?
Well, Village of Idiots is a little bit frozen right now. I've been just kind of waiting to see what the future is like.
It's now a Plague
right,
game.
right. It was already going to be a Plague game, but now that's very immersive. Um, Goat Larp T-shirts. That wasn't bad, honestly. Like, not just because people like T-shirts, but it kind of like gives people a sense of like being a part of something that's going on. Um, hmm. Other stuff that I've seen going on. My friends in Pennsylvania that run Dead Legends, the cowboy game, have been doing. They had like an online like chat event, and it was free,
Mm-hmm.
but they had like a tip jar out basically,
Mm-hmm.
um, and uh, and then it was just like 15 different like Discord rooms where people could role play, and there was no like game mechanics or anything like that, but like they had their staff as NPCs kind of hang out and I think they also did like little like D&D style narrated stuff kind of towards the end it was less crowded, but just like people really liked it. I'm told, not as like a replacement for LARP, but like that's all we can do right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really good way to kind of adapt to the times and adapt what's going on right now. We had been talking about Coventry for. I'm actually running Fate Accelerated, the like watered down version of Fate for the Coventry staff as a tabletop, so I can show them how easy it is to run in the Coventry world. So they're going to play their favorite NPCs because we'd like to start running for the players as well, just for something to do right now. Oh, Dan's left me. He's back. I think that that kind of adaptation for what's going on is definitely good. I something that I found to be really, really helpful is finding a really, really good graphic designer. Finding somebody who's either one of your player base or somebody that will be able to see your vision and just decorating everything. Our rulebook has a
Yeah,
ton of images in it. We have our logos. I know for Invictus, we are running a special that you get $20 off of your first game if you bring in a flyer. So we had somebody render a flyer for us, and I went to Intercon dressed up as a villain and handed them out. Things that look flashy have definitely been really helpful in drawing the attention of people to come to games. Um, I see you have a lot of photoshopped images I've seen around. Lots of backgrounds and fun things.
mm-hmm.
So, what do you think that we should look for, like in the future, like newer games? What kind of advice can we give them about creating creating a new player base? Like how to create a player base from scratch? Um,
Yeah. So I think like there's two parts of it. Like there's marketing your game, but like there's also like making your game accessible,
mm-hmm.
which is the other part of it. Like there are so many hoops like for somebody that's not like a larper already for them to get involved. First there's the hoop of like finding out about the game. Then you've got to like um, read all the stuff and decide if it's for you, and then you've got to like get like a costume, and then you've got to like if you don't know anybody there already, like you've got to go like
Meet
maybe take
people.
off time from work and stuff like that. Like there's no half-assing it when it comes to like weekends, you know, fantasy larps. Like you've got to like really like dive in.
Yeah,
So I think like you've also got to like design your game like knowing it's already impenetrable. You've got to make it figure out ways to make it smooth and easy to get in. Um, Games that have like new player discounts, I think like that can be pretty good.
I know Karoth did that for a long time. It was your first game that you played was free, and that was amazing of Stephen T. Hoare. That
Yeah,
it makes it so accessible for new players.
right. And I've definitely checked out games that like I was like kind of like borderline interested in, but like you get a free first event, so sure,
Yeah,
like grab the pack up the car and check it out. But what else has worked pretty well? you know, in over in Damerung, the Viking game I staff at, like there's a lot of like community floon. There's a lot of player made art and writing that like kind of continues the story, you know,
Yeah.
between events and stuff like that. People have like reading it and talking about it and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
I know
That's cool.
Madrigal's a lot like that as well, that the
Yeah,
players are very, very invested in keeping the game alive in between events, and it definitely makes a difference. That having that kind of level of um, want and excitement in a community is just great.
right, right. But also having a game that draws that out from people, like that they feel like they want to express something using the game, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's stimulating them creatively. You know, it's like making them imagine things and getting them excited. Uh, like that's the best marketing, really. You know, have
Mm-hmm.
everybody love it. That's the secret. Just do everything perfectly.
Do everything perfectly. Don't mess up at all.
Right.
Um, so I want to circle back around to we. You had mentioned like a free event, and that got me thinking about price points. So how? Because New England is a really, really competitive, extremely expensive place to run games. What what do you say to players who don't agree with a price point? You know, like
Yeah.
$100 is too much. You know, $110 is too much, even though you're getting 3 meals a day and so on and so forth. You can cut the food service and kick it down to 80, but it's never really going to go under 80.
Right.
I don't, and that's what I haven't really been able to figure out. Talking,
Yeah. I mean, all you can say is like, it's hard. You know,
yeah,
like this isn't easy to do these things. You
no,
know, um, it's expensive to run LARPs. It doesn't generally make a lot of money. There's like very few people that are, you know, really raking it in.
yeah,
um, and games are, you know, like they cheap out on things too. You know, like the game, like games kind of, I think they should be more expensive in some ways. You know, not that the price point needs to be higher, but like, you know, a lot of the things that people, I don't know, a lot of volunteer labor could be paid staff, and that would
yeah,
solve, you know, that would give people a better reason, I think, to invest in it backstage
yeah.
too. And anyway,
I I think I always tell people as well, if you don't want to pay or if it's too expensive the first time, you can come in NPC. One, you can kind of get your feet wet and see if that's something, you know, you can see what the game is like or how people run or how other people react. And that's really an easy way to get to know the community better, to, um, to really, really like kind of understand the behind the scenes, see if it's something that you want to get into. It gives you time to get your costumes ready. It's free. So we feed you, we love you.
right,
Um, but yeah,
yeah. I
that's
mean, I always just compare it to like all the different ways that you could spend like 100, 120 bucks in a weekend. Like
yeah,
it's pretty good entertainment per, you know, dollar per hour of entertainment breakdown. But
yeah. My
you
bar
know,
tabs are more expensive than that when I go.
right.
I'm just kidding. They're not that bad. Um, so I ask this people these question a lot. Like, what is the future of LARPing in New England? Do you think?
I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I mean,
It's a big question.
what's the end of 2020 in LARPing? Like nobody knows right now.
You're seeing games fall off and new games come out really strong. Like we're about to open a new allegedly about to open a new game in the fall, Fealty, which
mhm.
is run in New Hampshire, which there's not a lot of very many New Hampshire games. But I have no idea. I ask people a lot, what's the future of LARPing look like?
um, you know, I can speak like only to like my I'm biased because my taste is in certain things, and so I've been paying attention to how games have been growing in this particular direction. So I don't want to say it's the future, but I've really
But
enjoyed
it
this
is.
flowering. It's the future. Is goats, but animal-based LARPs with no plot. uh, no, but games with like lots of player agency. Like uh, there are a couple real. I like I've been heading to these games in Pennsylvania, which you know for a long time were like out of my driving radius, and like a lot of them just there's a really vibrant and cool community that kind of makes up the plot for the game as they go, and
Hmm.
the staff is doing it too. but it's only part of the show, and that causes people, and you see this at like the big festivals too. Like it causes people when they feel like it's not just like this game that they're playing, but also this like place where they can kind of express and perform and like put that energy that they put into it is rewarded and appreciated by people. Like then there's this huge flowering of creative growth, and people building big props and um, like in some of these games, like the staff can really kind of just like step off the stage because they're the least exciting thing,
Yeah.
there. Like people are doing such cool stuff, and then feel real ownership of it too. Um, I don't want to say that's the future of LARPing, but I've really appreciated seeing that kind of stuff
I feel
pop up.
I feel like a lot of games recently, or a lot of the games that I have been to recently, have definitely gone off the railroad tracks. Like they have definitely taken what the players have been putting forward and writing plot in to to fit into what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And I think, and if you look back like 10, 15 years ago in New England LARP, there was still a lot of player agency, but like I think that like it was a little bit closer back then to like almost like D&D DM mindset, where it's like I kind of wrote this module and it's agnostic to the players,
yeah,
and they'll come through it and they'll do the thing and they'll come out the other side, and that's the story. And like but it's hard work to try to like incorporate everybody,
yeah.
so it's not easy. And it comes with its own set of problems, but
I think that was probably the best advice I was ever given when I first started LARPing, and it was, it is your responsibility to make your own fun. Um, there is a staff that is there. You are paying to play a game. You are paying for an experience, but you are you are responsible for your own fun. So I've always come up with a really weird shtick anytime I'm PCing, or even when I'm NPCing or staffing, to mess with downtime, because it creates an experience. It's little pockets of it. I
right.
think I distinctly remember sitting around waiting at Coventry for people to come down and scream to the water and find out what was happening with the Here Last Dream Party, and you walk down as your PC. And it's about making fun for players in random acts of roleplay.
Right.
So, okay. So, I'm trying to think what would be useful. What would you tell somebody who's starting a new game? What would you tell them would be not the tried and true way, but your way of the first start of how to create a new game?
Um, I'd say, well, like really, like I think you want to think really hard about like what kind of experience you want to present and like what that feels like, and then what's fun about it. Like, and then I also think like you have to then like that's your strength, whatever that is, and you've got to try to lean all your posts on that. Not all of them, but like, um, like some games, their writers are really into like lore and setting and having like a really rich, place to explore. Like some people are really about, like, I mean, different games have different advantages and
Mm-hmm.
different things that they kind of specialize in. Like I think it would be good sometimes to like for games to really own that and put that forward. Like we're running this style of plot, and this is what we run here. And people go into it kind of eyes open about it.
Yeah.
Um, rather than having to play and like figure out like whether or not their style is like compatible.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, go back to the earlier. I was talking about the design sheet. I think that that's actually a pretty good like exercise. I've got a woman I know named Tara Clapper did like a workshop online that's like an hour long like video workshop about filling out a design sheet, and I should like drop the link to that.
You should.
Um, and all right, dropping that in there. Oh, I'm not signed into Twitch, so I can't set that. But I can probably share my screen and show you an example of a design doc that I saw recently. you see that?
Oh wow, that's gorgeous.
Okay, so this is I don't know like really anything about this game. I just kind of flagged it because they posted in I think LARPhaven recently that they had just finished their design doc, and it's a kind of a good example of what I'm talking about. Like they really like kind of have boiled down what they're offering in a way that makes sense to outsiders
Mm-hmm.
and is really clear about what kind of game they have. So you scroll through it. It starts off with a kind of in-game thing. They talk really explicitly about like this is a Witcher game and it's set in this part of the Witcher like universe or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the game about? And they talk about like what the style of plot is. You know, um, what kind of costumes do you want to bring to this game? Like if your game is high fantasy versus like a specific time period like Renaissance. Like you want to say that like on the outset. Who is this game for? Um, like this, they say it right here, like it's for everybody over 16 who wants to explore the setting. What I've seen people in design sheets for it sometimes here is to mention, like, like this is for example, like a game that has a lot of physical challenges, and a lot of the plot is about overcoming physical obstacles and like, sword play and combat and stuff like that.
Dan, can you copy and paste that drive link into the chat in Zoom so I can then
Sure, yeah.
paste it over to the other chat? This is fun. Technology is fun.
Yeah, yeah, it is. This is great.
um,
There are so many Zoom windows.
that is a very cool concept and great graphic design. It's really eye catching. It's really really great.
I can't find the chat.
Uh-oh. Hold on. I'm going to send you a message. This is fun. Did it pop up for you?
Am I still sharing my screen? Is everybody just like staring at a?
Yes.
Is that now paused? Screen sharing is paused. Okay, now hopefully not just.
Oh god. All right. We are still sharing your
Oh, I
screen.
found the chat. Jesus.
Yay! We did it. Okay. Yay.
All right. Um. Anyway, so there's a link to Tara Clapper's video in there, which again, it's really interesting, and I think it's like kind of good to think about. Like it's all good questions when you're designing your game for you to have in mind. Like, you know, yeah, again, like what kind of stories do I want to tell? Like, and what kind of stories do I not want to tell? And maybe that's part of it. Like like in games have different attitudes about PvP, for example. Do players compete with each other or do they cooperate with each other at this game? Like, but very rarely is that in the rule book. It's kind of just inferred by the game documentation. So it's just something I think like we'd all be better off if we were like clearer about it, about the intent.
Dan, will you stop sharing your screen for me?
Oh yeah, is it still? There we go. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Um, so that's great. That's something really, really cool that I had never seen before. Uh, what what is unique that I have seen lately that I think has been really, really cool? Um, I a lot there's been so many one day games coming out, just running on Saturdays, which really, really helps. Um, a lot of people can't go a weekend. So that's really been helpful for a lot of people. I like
Yeah.
that format. I think it's great. A lot of people who used to LARP forever ago, who now have families that they can't leave during the weekends, get to show up just for a Saturday.
Yeah.
I know Thaumatrope has been doing that. I think Inc. and After Dark were doing one days as well. So that's been something that's really cool that's been
Hmm.
happening.
This is kind of off topic, but I keep bumping into these like hilarious one shot LARPs that are, you know, more like for like a party than for like a weekend of camping or something like that. Like have you heard of the Olive Garden LARP? The idea is you go to Olive Garden with like 10 people or whatever, and you order the like unlimited breadstick, unlimited pasta night, or you know whatever, and then you begin telling the stories about the culture that you're from and like what you've given up to come here and you know what kind of life you're looking for here in this new world. And then the waiter comes and he takes or no, and then it's like whatever the first thing that arrives, like the salads or something like that. Like when the salads arrive, you're now the second generation, and you're talking about like how you know whether or not you've lived up to your parents' expectations, and you know what life has been like as the first generation of the people in this new land. And then the next course comes and you're the third generation of people, and you talk about like you know, and so you just kind of like advance, and then finally when you're like when you get the check, you know, and it's just everybody just goes around and says like a couple things, and you just keep going around until the next like course arrives or whatever. And you just try to build on what the people before you have said. It might be this thing that you're developing personally, or you know, through the group, uh, and uh, and then finally, like your last character is like the group of people that are they're like emigrating. They're like, you know, we're done. We're leaving this crazy country or place, and here's why we can't live here anymore. And then you get the check
Oh
and head
my
off
god,
into the sunset.
that's amazing. um, all right, so I asked you before what the future of LARP in New England looks like. What do you think we're missing?
What do we think we're missing? I mean, this will be no surprise to anybody that's heard me talk for like 5 minutes, but like, there's no like big LARP festival in the U.S. There's a couple versions of LARP festivals. There's Ragnarok, which is like kind of like a foam combat thing, but there isn't like a big ass. Um, Everybody's invited, simple entry, like fantasy LARP with like story and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That then also has big ass battles. Um, you know, like there are LARPs out there that are 300 plus people, but like you know the European festival scene's really cool.
Yeah.
That's
Could we get away with that? Do you feel like we as like American LARPers are kind of spoiled by individual story and ask like
oh
wanting
yeah. I think it's totally possible. You know, and individual stories like also still like a big feature of like
to
like these festivals.
presented by plot, like individuality
Oh
being
right.
handed to you by plot, because that's definitely a rubric of what American LARP is, where it's there's this expectation where you come to game, there is plot that is written, you will be involved, and your character will progress in X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I know that like the I have
That's
read,
one way of doing things, and
yeah,
it's a great way. Um, but no, there. I mean, there's and I think too like you you could run a festival for that, you know, kind
yeah,
of module driven style, but it's very logistically complicated, and distributing plot evenly is harder the larger number of people there are, you know. So like you kind of have to think about how to approach it differently. Like if you're running a game for 1,000 people as opposed to 100, you know, you can't have like individual plot hooks. You know, like there's and if it's just like whoever's in the tavern gets the plot, like once people figure it out, like there are certain people that get all of it, and then everybody else gets nothing. You know, but I think there is a way to do it. But anyway, like you know, the festival LARP's its own thing. You know,
mm-hmm.
it's not it doesn't offer the same things as a weekend LARP. It's missing some of the things that you would get at a weekend LARP. You know, like kind of like real intimacy and you know the ability to be the center of it, which
Yeah,
doesn't happen at a festival.
mm-hmm.
You know, and but like I was saying earlier, though, like the ones that work because they're like a really big creative platform. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like people come to them and they're kind of bringing their own LARP with them, and everybody around them is part of it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
at games like Dragonfest and Mythodia, like the team that you come with is so much of a like it's also your plot, you know, and there are people who've kind of worked out like how to run a satisfying weekend LARP plot like within a large team,
Yeah.
you know, in addition to there being like a big metagame of these teams are competing to get dragon eggs or whatever the mechanic is for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, uh, I don't want to like turn it into like an ad for Damarung, but the Viking game that I staff is like, you know, we really value the pregame workshop space. Like it's a game where players create most of the plot. Like we create like kind of a structure for them to interact with,
But
and
they
so
decide what they're gonna do for the weekend. Like they sit
yeah,
together and decide, like, generally this is what we want to do for the weekend.
right. You got and it puts a little bit more responsibility on the player because they have to know what they enjoy.
Yeah.
It's I mean you can go and just kind of wander around and get into hijinks at Damarung, but like you get a lot better experience out of it if you know that you want to have like an emotional role playing experience or an intense like duel or you just want to
Wear pretty
make
dresses and
friends or
walk
something
around.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, like but if you pick a goal, it's like then in the pregame workshop, you have kind of tools to find other people that want that kind of experience and just kind of put the beginning of it together, you know. Um, and like in our workshop, we'll have like a section where it's like everybody that wants like intense, hostile, like kick, slit your throat role play that might end in death, go to this corner,
Mm-hmm.
And now everybody that wants to do like philosophical debate and religious conversion role play, go to this corner, And now everybody that just wants like friendship and doesn't want conflict, but they want to like make friends across cultures
Maples.
and do stuff, you go to this corner,
Yeah.
And then we give everybody like 10 minutes to just kind of go around and just like the idea is just to give yourself a hook for later in the weekends. Like, all right, how did we meet, and what's your, what are we gonna fight about or debate? What are you interested in talking about? Okay, this. All right, now when we meet in game, we can steer ourselves towards that experience. And it's also a place that you can, if you like the really kind of like game challengey kind of places, you could, seed that yourself. Like if you want to be searching for your grandfather's sword, like there's a way for you to hand that off during the pregame workshop so that some player somewhere in the game has it and you've got to figure it out, like you can kind of like it's we really want to let people kind of GM their own stuff.
Yeah. I definitely think that player agency is there's a fine line of I want to create this world versus I want to create a path for my character. And I think that it's really, really interesting to see how different games kind of
Yeah.
use that style or that.
Right.
Um, I wonder. I wonder what other different ways that there are, like, instead of really like just internally, like a plot staff being able to take what a player wants to do and then creating a plot line for them versus is there a middle ground is what I'm trying to say versus Damarung and like a plot staff trying to do it. What are some other different options and different ways that people take player agency into account and make it something that's important to their game or their game model? I know that I think I vaguely remember in reading about After Dark how if you did your research on your character, if you made them somebody from New England for New England Gothic, um, to fit into the game, you got something else. I don't remember what it was, but like something by doing your research of something within the history of New England that this thing happened in game that was really, really cool. And I think, oh, that's cool. Like that's a really awesome way of doing it.
Yeah.
But so back to marketing. Uh, what games are you most excited for coming up in the next year-ish? Where have you heard anything that sparked your interest?
Well, clearly my game Goat Lark 2 is gonna knock it out of the park.
Yes.
And then especially the improvements over Goat Lark 1 is that now we're selling XP. You can now buy XP. If you don't want to wait for power, you can just get it with money. And but XP is crackers that you can feed the goats, and then the goats get the XP. It's not for you, NPC. You have to you get like a cookie or something that you feed the goat. And then I think I'll have like pictures of the goat, and you can put an XP tally next to the goat you just fed, and then the goats can have PvP through that. I think that's probably how that'll work. Anyway, so Go Lark 2. Fantastic.
I need to go this year. I didn't go last year.
Yeah, Village of Idiots. This is going to be big. I hope it'll be big. But it's also just another kind of take on LARP. Like it's if I could plug it, it's so it's.
What's your elevator pitch?
Everybody in this chat room, I think, has already heard this, but it's a comedy LARP. I'm going to have some improv comedy teachers come to the weekend and give everybody like a how to improv comedy workshop. We're also going to everybody signs up for a specific role in the Village of Idiots, and the village is populated by low competence people, and people who are the straight man in the bit, like they're kind of aghast at these morons I'm surrounded by, so you'll have a job that you either can't or won't do. Part of the workshop is developing your idiocy in a specific way. Like, what's your thing that keeps you from doing your job? Like, if you like writing poetry, like that, like you gotta. Now the game is about figuring out why. When the mayor told you to dig that hole, like why you can't do it because you're too busy writing poetry and like expressing that. And there'll be a lot of like slapstick. There's a lot of just real goofy stuff built into how the game works. Like everybody's bad at their job, so like at some point, like the pickpocket is going to fail to pick somebody's pocket, and he's going to get chased around, and the guard is going to fail to catch him, and then if they do catch him, he's going to go to a trial where a lawyer is going to badly misrepresent his case, and then he's going to escape from the jail because the jailer is not paying attention either.
Amazing.
So that's a little snapshot of Village of Idiots. Coming soon. What else? I'm playing a game called Malleus, which is like it's also up in Pennsylvania, and it's like a Warhammer themed. How to describe it? It's like it's a PvP LARP. Like the game is explicitly about finding glowing green rocks that show up in the woods randomly. Basically Warpstone from Warhammer, Witchstone, and you sign up for one of 5 like player groups, and it's whoever gets the most stones at the end of the weekend wins. It all kind of resets.
It's capture the flag, the LARP.
It's really simple, yeah. But with theatrical combat, they have this kind of cool combat system, the Clash system, which is like really about like kind of giving space to roleplay big hits, and I could go on about that, but I won't. And so that's really fun. It's also just like a kind of like a very chill game. Like it's very aesthetically dark, but the community is really fun, and like basically at like 1 a.m. the game stops and it's like a party.
Oh, that's awesome.
The game doesn't really stop, but it definitely becomes a party.
I know that like Mistwood LARP up in Maine, they stop for dinner and everybody goes out of game to eat, which I don't know if I would personally like that, but I know a lot of people who like need that break to stop what you're going through. Yeah.
Also, like in games with like a lot of PvP tension, it's kind of nice to have a space where people could just chill and not be like on,
Yeah.
And then what else? Damarung, it's the Viking game. That one's really fun. I play the Troll King. If you want to be a monster, you should come be it. It's super sweet. I'm excited about Coventry. I'm excited about Invictus. And I'm like, we've got a great group in Coventry. It's a lot of fun.
Coventry is a special world. I can't believe how much the players have just like formed this community so quickly. It's really been cool to watch.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And it's fun too. You
yeah.
can just like walk up to and talk to anybody. You know, like during the game, it's like everybody's friends. Not like friends in game, but like everybody's approachable.
Yeah.
You know, it's just fun to be in that group.
It's definitely been like a treasure to watch. Like the random acts of things that I could walk in as an NPC and be like, I'm beelining to the tavern because I have to go do something, and the random batches of people that I see interacting with each other has definitely been interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
so I am also extremely excited about Invictus. Do you want to hear something that I just found out about Invictus that I didn't know that I think is an incredible piece of marketing and doing something great for your player base? They handwrite a note or a letter or email to every player that writes a Pell. So every player that writes a Pell, they handwrite a response to them, talking to them
Cool.
about what they talked about in their Pell. And I'm like, mind blown. It's the easiest piece of customer service that I don't think anyone's ever thought of before. I was like, that's amazing. I'm super excited for Fealty. So Fealty was supposed to be airing in the fall. It's Alan Green's brainchild. It was a tabletop of his that he ran for, I think, like groups of. It's a group of 16 people that he ran in like 2 different groups, but everybody is a knight. And it's in this like city that's called Argos, but it's kind of like Camelot themed, but it I'm just really, really pumped for it. It's going to be that like really classic style high fantasy. It's going to be in New Hampshire, so it's going to be a little bit cheaper than like that price point that we were talking about in most of New England. And the site is also awesome. Um, I'm so I was talking to Dan Burke a little bit about Velvet Noir.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a game I'm going to go check out. It's a Super Rules Light 1920s game.
Yeah, it's a 1920s like I'd say it's very lightly horror themed, but it's like mainly a social horror themed game. You know, really interesting. You know, like it's a game about other identities, and like the concept is it's like a speakeasy where it's like basically like the one safe space in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the groups that you sign up for are like the Latin group and like the blacks. I don't know, like there are in-game names, but like they map really heavily onto like kind of like real-world ethnicities and cultures, and it's a really bold game.
Yeah.
That's exploring stuff that's like kind of not traditionally like LARP, like stuff that we would really kind of back away from, but they like really lean into it. You know, racist cops and anti-Semitism and the horror of that.
So I know that one of the things that they were doing as well is having major conversations between players before games to see what everybody is comfortable with as well, which I think is great. I think that there are some themes that you should not explore, but I think that there are having a conversation prior to a game talking about what one person is comfortable with and what one person is not comfortable with leading into it is definitely imperative in situations like that. We had a question in the chat. What is considered customer service, especially at a LARP? I think showing minimally, just because I've heard horror stories from LARPing for years past, is showing your players that you care about them. Whether that's labeling stuff for allergies, reacting to appels is definitely a way to show customer service in LARPs. Making people feel heard when a complaint arises, I think, is a big one. But that's what I have for that. So.
Yep.
So we're almost at an hour. I can let you go. Thank you so much for joining me, Dan. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes, it has been. Thanks for having me.
I
hope that was interesting for everybody.
Yeah.
You haven't heard, we haven't been LARPing, so none of you have heard me ramble about the same 4 things. So you're welcome. Now you're caught up.
Thank you for listening to us talk about marketing, but then not really talk about marketing afterwards. But then bring it back to marketing, I guess. Again, life is a full circle. All right, thanks again, Dan. Bye, guys. Thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.